The crisis rocking the Ondo chapter of the People's Democratic Party may not be ending quite soon, as the state executive has defiled the order of the National Working Committee with the appointment of the state deputy chairman, Tola Alabere, as the acting chairman. The announcement was made after a meeting of the State Executive Council at the party secretariat in Akure, the state capital. The state executive explained that the development became necessary to avoid any vacuum following the suspension of his chairman, Peretei, and that's Mr. Peretei Adams. However, the appointment of Mr. Alabere was ratified by 9 of the 11 members of the State Working Committee. Well, trouble started for the suspended chairman earlier in the week when the State Working Committee accused Mr. Adams of what they consider anti-party activities and actions they say are likely to bring the party in the state into disrepute, and directed him to appear before the State Disciplinary Committee of the party within a week for further interrogation. Oh, I've been joined on the program. Let's talk about this particular issue even a bit further. We've been joined by the PDP Publicity Secretary in Ondo State, Mr. Kennedy Peretei. Mr. Kennedy, thank you so much for coming on the program. Can you hear me, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
All right. So because we don't have the luxury of time, due to technology, we've taken so much time. Give us a backstory of this back and forth between the state executive and the National Working Committee that led to the suspension of Mr. Peretei Adams and the appointment of another chairman in this capacity.
Well, good evening, and thanks for having me this evening. The important fact here is that there are 2 elections, major elections we're having this year. The by-election coming up in February and the governorship election coming up in November this year. Now, ordinarily, there shouldn't have been any cause for alarm, but in the build-up to this by-election, we find out that the former state chairman, Peretei Adams, was doing some movements that were becoming very suspicious because we didn't want a kind of rancorous primaries. So the State Executive Committee decided that we are going to get something like a consensus, and a committee of 20 men made up of men of timber and caliber in that federal constituency to give us a report. And the committee reported that there were several aspirants who were graded from position 1 to 7. And we agreed that if that was the recommendation of the State 20-man committee, then the person who came first, that's Leko Bada, should be nominated as a consensus candidate. But the chairman, in his own wisdom, wanted a situation whereby the man who came third in the rating of the 20-man committee should become the candidate of the party. And we said no. So you can see the signatures of 9 out of 10 of the working committee members asking Mr. Peretei Adams to step aside so that we can go ahead with the view of the majority. Now, yesterday, the State Executive Committee, which oversees the State Working Committee, also gave approval to Mr. Peretei Adams' suspension. So, about going back and forth with the National Executive Committee, we don't have any issues with the National Executive Committee because the point is that we have our own functions. The National Working Committee has its own functions. Now, so what we have done is strictly. All right, Mr.
Peretei, because I just said because of time, so I want to throw as many questions in as possible. Some will see this as an affront on the NWC. For those who see it that way, what will be your reaction?
Certainly, it's not an affront. It is not an affront. The State Executive Committee has capacity according to our own constitution, and specifically Section 57, subsection 3, gives us the opportunity to discipline anybody at the level in which that person is performing. So if the National Executive Committee says we have gone beyond our powers, it will not be true. And the statement issued by Ologbaga did not point to that area of the Constitution which says we were not doing what we were supposed to do. We were quoting our own sections of the Constitution which gave us power to do what we did. So it was nothing like altercation or saying that we are going against what National Committee wants us to do. No, very far from that.
But isn't it worrying that going into your very first election, which would be like perhaps your first litmus test in whether you can succeed in winning an election in February or February the 3rd. You're going in as a divided house. Wouldn't that affect your chances at the end of the day?
In the list, we are not divided at all. If there are 9 persons saying the same thing against 1 person, then you should know that the 9 are in the majority. And in the committee of 20, they recommended, all the aspirants endorsed, agreed that the committee of 20-man report should be adopted. And they were able to agree with the decisions of the 20-man committee. So that's not division in any kind. It's only the chairman that is trying to constitute himself into the club in the wheel of progress. And that's why he has been, removed. He has not been removed, he's been suspended. And depending on the outcome of the decision of the disciplinary committee.
Do you think anybody, maybe a 5th columnist or somebody is behind the chairman, backing him to be able to want to pull that weight against all of you who are in the executive that you maybe want to share with us?
That is a suspicion. That is suspicion. The party believes very strongly that the state chairman or the former state chairman is being sponsored to cause disaffection in the party. And that is what they must clear with the disciplinary committee as to whether indeed is culpable, is found culpable in these allegations of challenges.
So let's put it on record. As a party, you are going into the by-election with a consensus candidate there. You will not have maybe primary election, direct primaries or indirect. It's consensus you're adopting. Is that the view of the greater majority of the party in the state besides the executive themselves? Exactly so.
Exactly so. That was the basis of the 20-man committee, because in 2021 we had something similar to that. We lost a member of House of Rep. There was going to be a primary, a by-election, and we, went into a primary election, which became so rancorous, and we lost that election. So we are learning from our own experience that if we go into this election with a consensus candidate, we are most likely to win. And that is what the chairman is saying we should not do. So the State Executive Committee unanimously endorsed the decision of the State Working Committee. And that is where, it will be difficult for the National Working Committee to say anything to the contrary. But we are talking about a democracy. It's about numbers. It's about people.
I must thank you so much. PDP Publicity Secretary in Ondo State, Mr. Kennedy Peretei, coming on the program to explain to us what exactly is going on in terms of the leadership of your party. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.